these loaded up. Good evening, social media. Welcome to VBC Happy Hour for Monday, February 21st. We're going to start the program in just a couple minutes. And joining us tonight are authors and Army veterans Curtis Morrow and Darrel Nash. Going to get all of our restreams up and running. So interesting when I do this. There we go. Is that your paw?
Yep, that's him. That's him.
All right.
That's him.
Hey, there he is. Hey, Jim.
Have my mute.
We did it.
I got you.
All righty, good. Good.
You're all saying
you can't see your whole face, but
I'll take care of that.
oh, okay. I was wondering what's happening. All right.
Darrel, I was saying to Curtis that I'd like to start with you whenever we get into the program. Thought we would get some history.
Okay.
Being the historian of the 24th, do you cover from beginning all the way through, or are you more specialized in certain spots?
Oh, from the beginning to the end.
Fantastic. Good. That's what I was hoping, because yeah, I love sort of diving into that history as we sort of get up to the Korean War and into Curtis's story, and I'm excited for all of it.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and press share before we play a little music here at the beginning. Go. You gentlemen are doing well tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Happy to hear it. Darrel, where are you zooming in from?
Puyallup, Washington.
West Coast.
Oh, yes.
Oh boy, how's it over there?
Cold.
All right, I'm gonna let everybody into the room here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to VBC Happy Hour for Monday, February 21st. My name is Sean Hall. I'm the Director of Programming with the Veterans Breakfast Club. We're a nonprofit in Western PA. For those of you who've never been with us before, we're a small nonprofit here based in Pittsburgh, whose mission is to create communities of listening around veterans and their stories to connect, educate, heal, and inspire. I am flying solo tonight. Todd is off doing a speaking engagement. So if you see me sort of bouncing around and all the lights flashing on my screen, it's just because I'm bouncing all over the place trying to pull up different things. It's always fun flying solo. But very excited for our guests tonight, authors and Army veterans, both Curtis Morrow and Darrel Nash. They're both going to be coming on to talk about the 24th Infantry Regiment and the books that they both have written. The 24th was the last of the Buffalo Soldier units. We'll be talking more specifically about Korea, but Darrel is a historian for the 24th. So we're going to take it back to the inception of the 24th and really sort of get an in-depth view about, the whole breadth of this regiment. As we go along tonight, couple announcements before we get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. There it is. Okay. Everyone can see that. Always thankful to our sponsors, tobacco-free Adagio Health, for sponsoring VBC Happy Hour tonight. Obviously, the best way to quit smoking is maybe to never start smoking, but if you find yourself that you would like to quit at this time, it's a great time to contact Adagio Health at tobaccofree.adagiohealth.com. rotary.org, or you can call their free quit line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. I always find it interesting now, like rotary phones, you didn't have the letters on those, did you? Now you have to look at and find all those tiny little letters every time you want to go digital and touch all those things. Can't always do it, but Tobacco Free Adagio Health, thank you so much for sponsoring VBC. Really appreciate your support. And also, I'm going to talk a bit about our upcoming programs here. We got some great stuff coming up, even just this week. Tonight, obviously with Curtis and Darrel, but even tomorrow night, we have Commanding in the Pacific, Stephen Taffy and David Ulbrich. They're going to talk Marine Corps history. So for you Marine Corps veterans here in the room, you definitely don't want to miss tomorrow night. That is VBC Greatest Generation Live. That'll be hosted by Glenn Flickinger. I'll be back with him tomorrow night playing wingman, doing all the background stuff, but Glenn is bringing them both on to chat about this. Wednesday morning, this seems really interesting. This is the anniversary of the flag raising at Iwo Jima. So I guess there's some focus after tonight, there's some focus on Marine Corps, but it seems that one of the members in the flag raising, it was reported wrong, and a gentleman found the right veteran, and he had at first denied that he was in the photo. But it eventually came out that he was in it. This historian's going to come on, Brent Westmeyer, to talk about what was wrong in the photo. This will be Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. All these times are at Eastern Standard Time. So tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Eastern on Wednesday morning. Next Monday, I did a scuttlebutt with this military fraternity, the Mu Beta Phi, had one of their co-founders on, also had, I believe, their communications director. Neither of them will be joining us next Monday, but I was able to reach out into their network and get several of their brothers to come on and tell us their story. Post 9/11 veterans, Army, most of them Army, one of them Navy, but they're going to come on, talk about their service, talk about Mu Beta Phi, and all the great work that Mu Beta Phi has been doing. A really, really exciting military fraternity. And then Julia Parsons, who's here with us in the room. For those of you who don't know, Julia is turning 101 coming up in, Julia, if you can hear me, what is your exact birthday?
The 2nd of March.
2nd of March. So Wednesday, March 2nd. We are celebrating the birthday next Wednesday. Julia is a World War II Navy wave, helped to crack the Enigma code. We're excited to celebrate. I got chills saying that. We're excited to celebrate your birthday next Wednesday, Julia. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Everything coming up is good stuff. So please join us whenever, however you can. We're always happy to have you along with us. For tonight, anybody who has a question throughout the program, please throw it into the chat. Like I said, I'm flying solo, so I'm going to be sort of bouncing around. But if I don't see it, just you can raise your hand by doing that on in your reactions thing on here on Zoom, and I'll make sure to see that and get over to you. But I want to extend a very warm welcome to both Curtis Morrow and Darrel Nash. Both of you, how are you doing tonight? Thank you so much for coming on VBC Happy Hour.
Doing good.
Doing good, very good.
Yeah, you were both saying it's cold where you're at. Well, in Pittsburgh, it is 60 degrees. I was outside in a t-shirt today and loving life. But I've been interested in diving into this whole history since Todd said, hey, can you cover for me that night? I said, sure. I've been watching a lot of videos and reading a lot of stuff. And I figured, you know what, I'm not the historian. Darrel's a historian, so I'll let Darrel tell this story. We'll start with Darrel, you tonight. Darrel, you're an Army veteran, 26 years, but you're also the historian for the 25th Regiment. Is that right? The guy.
Oh, well, 24th.
Did I say 25th?
Oh, yeah, that's a division.
25th. I don't want to get that wrong. You're right.
Yeah, that's
24th.
true.
Thank you.
We volunteered him.
Yes, they did. How the whole entire thing started with the 24th Infantry Regiment was after the Civil War, the United States government was reorganizing. And this all started July the 28th, 1866 for the entire United States military, that they were going to have so many colored, cavalry troops, and 2 of them had to be colored. And they had 45 infantry units, and 4 of them had to be colored. That's the words they used back then. So, and the reason why was to honor the Black troops, what they did during the Civil War, because we were like the ace in the hole. The old saying, break in case you need help, the old glass saying. Well, that's what they needed for them to win the Civil War, which we did a tremendous great job in helping the Union turn the tide against the Confederacy. So the military was reorganized, become more of a professional army. And this was the first time ever that I know of in recorded history where Blacks were officially on the books to help defend this country. Instead of, when we need you, we're going to break the glass syndrome. But no, we are officially, we're going to get paid the whole works. And the cavalry, it was 10 of them all together. 2 of them were Black. That was the 9th and 10th Cavalry. And there were 45 infantry regiments. And you had the 38th, 39th, 40, and 41st. All of them were Black. The rest were all white. And due to anything in life, the budgets were extremely high. They said, wait a minute, we don't need an infantry units, 45 strong. So they reduced it down to 25. And what they did, they still want to keep Black troops. So what they did, they combined the 38th and 41st and made the legendary 24th, which, my fathers, you see on the Zoom line and everything. And they made the 39th and 40th, that became the 25th Infantry Regiment. And I want to clear up something right off the bat. I want to make sure you don't get them confused, because people having a tendency to get the 24th Infantry Regiment with the 24th Infantry Division. Well, they're totally different. One is Black, one is a white division, and their birthdays are totally different. And also, do not get the 24th Infantry Regiment mixed up with the 24th Colored Infantry from the Civil War. They were totally different. So these numbers kind of look alike, but they're totally different in the days they were formed. So with that being done, the 24th came off to a good start. I said from the marriage of the 38th and 41st, they got together and gave birth to the 24th at a place called Fort McKavett, Texas. And the way I look at it, the 24th came from some good parents, and being in the state of Texas where they were born, I said they came down their mother's womb. They had blood in their mouth, redness in their eyes. They had 2 pistols in their hand to kick the ground and to take names, because they were born in Texas, and Texas do things a little bit differently. And they were there for a long period of time, doing guarding a stagecoach. They maintained law and order, like a lot of the Buffalo soldiers. The first Park Rangers were Buffalo soldiers. The 9th Cavalry in 1899 in California, and the 24th H Company's right there with them. They took part of, there was some of the border guards as well, because, Texas and New Mexico, Arizona, and California border Mexico, and they performed duty there with their white counterparts. They did a lot of things that I'm trying to control myself against so many things they did was so unique. They had a young chaplain by the name of Colonel Allensworth, and he was instrumental being a chaplain and getting the Army program for enlisted men. Now, he knew that when a man knew how to read and write, he become more of an asset to the Army. They won't be out there chasing what we call chasing skirts. It's a time to chase skirts, but it's a time to hit the books and to educate yourself. Well, he knew that. So he put together an education program for the 24th Infantry Regiment to educate those men. And it was a very successful program, because it was used by the entire United States Army, even still to this day. And to make sure the 24th was successful, he went to the East Coast to recruit number of educated Black men, which was quite unique. They all had high school education. He went up north where the hunting was good. So he got some good quality young men, and he brought them back to the 24th, and they were school teachers to educate those men. The 24th, they pulled the tour of duties. They were one of 2 Buffalo soldier units that went into Mexico with General Pershing to go chase Pancho Villa. Mm-hmm. How they got the name of Buffalo Soldier, there's a lot of debate on that. Some said because the Native Americans said because of the hair of the Black man was like the buffalo mane, and plus he had a tough fighting spirit like the buffalo. When the buffalo was hit with bows and arrows, they wouldn't stop fighting. They'll just hold on. They'll keep going on and on. Sorry about that. They keep going on fighting. So, and then there were some guys, they looked into it. They said there was no proof of that, but it depends who you talk to. So, to each his own. I don't try to argue with people, whatever it is. So to each his own. But they did a lot of good things. I mean, a ton of great things that are, that we sometimes forget about. Like I said, being Buffalo soldiers and taking part in maintaining the Old West. They went to L Company went to Alaska, maintain law and order up there in Fort Dyer, and also Skagway, Alaska. They performed riots. They're not riots. They stopped riots and everything else. They protected settlers. They protected Indians from white settlers, and they protected settlers from hostile Indians. So they did a lot of good things. And when they went to the Pacific, they continued on that trend. They got the first official surrender of a Japanese garrison on the island of Akashima. Well, these guys felt that wasn't good enough. They got the second official surrender the next day on Takeshima, the next day in the Araya coast. And then I think later on that week, a third or fourth day later, they got one from Kumishima, but they got two official surrenders in their record. I doubt not too many units on active duty or that's retired got even one or two in their records. They got two.
Darrel, if I may interrupt just real quick, even about those surrenders. Obviously, we'll get into this more with Curtis and maybe in the Korean War. Those are surrenders that you don't hear a whole lot about in the history books. And was there a reason for that?
Well, the point of it is, it's in the history books, believe it or not. It's in the military history books as well. What happened, we don't teach that too much in school, but it's in the history books. That's official. There were pictures taken of Colonel Hearn, nice guy from West Virginia. He wrote the infantry song for the infantry many years ago. They don't use it anymore. They kind of they upgraded and everything else. But from my research on Colonel Hearn, he was with the 24th when they said Fort Benning, Georgia. Now his official thing was he was a lawyer by trade. So as time went on, they made him a battalion commander, and he didn't know they were grooming him to become the regimental commander. And a quick story behind him, from what I read, he didn't have a racist or prejudice bone in his body. He knew what he had to do, and he took care of business. So,
and there was also famously, not just the let's see here, the Spanish American War, the Battle of San Juan Hill, the Buffalo Soldiers made a name for themselves.
That's correct. Dealing with Cuba, and I didn't talk about that too. I just kind of skipped over there's no reason for it though. The reason why it was the first time ever when Black troops as a whole, all four of the Buffalo Soldier regiments were going to combat to fight together. And it's quite interesting. The first unit to get that call was the 25th Infantry Regiment. They got that call from up in the Dakotas that they were going to Cuba, and then all the rest of them got the same call as well. The 24th at that time was in Utah at Fort Douglas. Now this was quite interesting because at first the Mormons did not want those Black troops there. They sent the congressmen back to Washington to protest against it. And as typical of the 24th, they won their hearts and minds. How they did it was they had an outstanding band. You always got to have an outstanding band to win people's hearts and minds, and they had that. So when the Sunday came around, they came out in the square. They would play for the people, and everybody would gather around and watch and hear them play, and they played so wonderfully that people liked it. So every Sunday, the crowds got bigger and bigger. So when the word came for them to leave to go to Cuba, and that was the first time I think recorded that the white people came out, they were cheering them on, saying, go down and kick butt, kick tail, everything, give it to them. And they were kind of crying to see them leave. And when they left and they went to Cuba with the 9th and 10th Cavalry and the 25th, they went there. Now they went to a place down in Lakeland in the Tampa area in Florida before they went across. Had a few little rough spots there with some little bad people, but overall they went to San Juan, and they came across a guy named Teddy Roosevelt. And as you know the story behind him, Teddy Roosevelt came with the 71st New York Volunteers. They came from, I think, 12 or 13 different countries. They had some Native Americans with them, rich guys, college guys, cowboys, had them with them. And they had never been in combat before, and neither had Roosevelt. So when he went into combat, a lot of folks, and this was all verified, when he went into combat, he was going up the hill to engage the Cubans. Now the Cubans had better weapons than we did. They had I think we had the Krag the Krog rifle. They had the other type of rifle because when they fired their weapons, it didn't leave no smoke trail. But when we fired our weapons, it left a smoke trail. So they knew where we were, but we didn't know where they were until we got close up on them. But what we can do, come to bear to do some damage on them. And as he was leaving his guys up that hill, the Spanish waited till he got within effective killing range, and they opened up on him. And when they did, they lit him up. And because they start retreating from the field. And at that time, on the side of him was the 24th, under Colonel Lipscomb. After they ran right past him, he marched out. He did a left movement face or right movement face, and we went out, his white officers behind him, all of his black NCOs and all of his troops went with him up that hill to San Juan. And as they were going up, the hill, a lot of the officers were wounded or killed, and the word would have it, if the black troops did not have their white officers, they would not fight. Well, again, the 24, being the caliber of soldier they are, put that lie to rest because the NCOs took them up that hill, what was left them to take on the Spaniards. Now, Roosevelt took Kettle Hill, was adjacent to San Juan Hill, but we pretty much took San Juan Hill along with the 10th Cavalry, and his boys came up later on. And there's a famous picture of Roosevelt of him standing up with his guys from the 71st New York Volunteers. But when they chopped it up, if you wind the picture, you'll see colored troops in that picture that they didn't want people to notice that they were there with them. So that's why we have San Juan on our crest. And I here on my little shirt, I don't know if you can see it or not, our crest, and it's got San Juan on it because that belongs to us. We took it.
So, sorry, I'm referring to my notes. Whenever if you look back at those soldiers, do stories survive from those guys? Like the first guys that were a part of this regiment? Is there any recorded audio, but like recorded stories of their service?
Remember, a lot of guys cannot read and write too well, so a lot of them did not write a lot of that stuff. Only a few did. It's only small amounts of history of the guys did write the stuff down. Could not be, again, these guys that came from an area where they were forbidden to read and write, and it was up to the chaplains to teach them how to read and write. And the other people, the black newspapers wrote articles about them, what they said to them, or the guys who could read and write wrote in the articles to those black newspapers, and they did print it, but it wasn't a very large number. They wrote diaries of what they really did.
A question from Henry here in the chat. Did the Buffalo Soldiers fight in the Philippine American War?
Yes, they did. All four of them did. Again, the 24th was the first of the Buffalo Soldier units in 1899 sent to the Philippines. They went to the Philippines a total of 4 times of tours of duty. And of course, a total of between 500 to 1,000 of them stayed in the Philippines from 1899 to the year, I think, 1913. About 500 to 1,000 stayed in the Philippines and made it their home. That's the 9th, 10th Cavalry, 24th, 25th Infantry Regiment. And there were 2 other black volunteer units. That was the 48th and 49th Volunteer Infantry units that stayed. They had men, married Filipino women, and they stayed there. And believe it or not, those black men that stayed there and made the Philippines their home, when the Japanese came in World War II, they were fighting as guerrillas against those Japanese forces. That's recorded.
Take us up to the point where they moved to Fort Benning. Was how big of a deal was that for them to move into there, and how did they gain popularity once they were there? When
they left, they had a situation happen in Houston in 1917, in August of 1917. Had the Houston riots. It was a very terrible thing. They had one similar to that, the 24th, at a place called Waco, but they kind of squashed that one. It wasn't as big as the Houston riots. And some guys got a court-martial, was sent to prison. Some were hanged for taking part in that terrible event due to the worst treatment they were receiving there in Houston by the local people, the white people in that area, just the way it was. And it was sent to Columbus, that time Columbus, New Mexico. And as they packed up, they went to Columbus, New Mexico, and before they went to Fort Benning. While at Columbus, New Mexico, they built up an impressive boxing organization. Little did they know, they produced more boxing champions all the way up to 1950 before they went to Korea. They lead the army. No, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. The military and producing the most boxing champions in United States military history. That's been documented. That's just the way it was. They produced more boxing champions, not boxing, boxing champions. And they started there at Columbus, New Mexico, and went all the way up till they went to Japan before they went to Korea. Boxing champions. So they were there again, outstanding bands, having fun, doing their thing, protecting the border. And then they left there. They went to Fort Benning. That was August, I think it was October, August of 1921. They went to Fort Benning. 1922, they went to Benning. And they were there for 20 consecutive years before they left to go to the Pacific and never to return to the United States.
And I believe they also, what I read was they're a really good baseball team, right?
Oh, absolutely. They dominated baseball. They were good at sports. Even still to this day, if you go to Fort Benning, there's a place, Fort Benning, Georgia, there's a place called Gowdy Field. That's where they played their baseball games at. They played against everybody. They hold the record at Fort Benning for the longest baseball inning. I think it was, 16 or 20 innings. No, I'm sorry, 20 innings. They beat the first of the 29th 3-2. And that still stands at Fort Benning. It is ranked number 6 and for the military history as a whole for the most innings out of 10. They ranked number 6 for the longest innings played. And at Fort Benning, they played against white teams. They played against historical black colleges, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Florida. They played against the Negro Leagues, the Nashville Elites, the Birmingham Crackers, and also the Birmingham Barons. They played against all of those teams. They lost some and they won some, but they had a good baseball team. Yes.
Brad asked in the chat, were there any female Buffalo Soldiers?
There's been speculation there was one, and Kathy Williams, and she was with the 38th before they became the 24th. Like I said, the 24th came from some good stock, and the 38th was where she was with. And the 41st combined, they had marriage, and they got together and gave birth to that 24th. And again, that long heritage. But she's the only one that is known. And the only way she could pass for a man is to put the cards out that she had to be unattractive, she had to be flat-chested, and she was in the military for only about 2 years. So that's the last recorded part that she went to Colorado. That's where she lived out the rest of her life, and she was trying to get her pension from the military for the injuries that she had sustained being in combat, being in the military.
I'm also glad that you brought up the riot, because in my research I came across, I'm gonna put in the chat a YouTube official trailer, which I believe this came out recently, the Houston riot of 1917. It's called The 24th.
Yes.
It's a recent movie about that riot. If for our viewers tonight, go ahead and click on that YouTube and give the trailer a view. It looks like it's going to be a very good and very good educational movie. Let's see, or Derek put in here, I'm a World War I buff, but not very familiar with the why, how Pershing was given nickname Blackjack from when he served in Spanish American War. Can you speak to that?
Yes. No, I got that name Blackjack because all the West Point officers, and they still to this day, bear with me here, the ones who score at the top of their class are given the best assignments. You score at the top of your class at West Point, you're the ones assigned to become a doctor, the engineers, the intelligence, the adjutants, the communications guys, the signal guys, artillery guys, because you had to be pretty smart to do that. If you scored lower in your class, you were assigned to armor, cavalry, and infantry. Or sometimes logistics, but that's or supply. That's what they will assign you. They still exist today, and across the board. And he was one of those guys who was assigned to colored troops, 10th Cavalry, and being with him and everything else, he was quite impressed with him, what he saw and everything else. And as a young captain, he went back to a fort at West Point, becoming an instructor. And while he was there, he was appalled how the cadets did not know how to march properly or even ride horses. None of that, how to do things, the mounts properly. And he requested to bring a contingency or a detachment of the 10th Cavalry there to show them how to do it right. And he succeeded in bringing a detachment. And they were there for God for a long time. And no one knew nothing about it for years. I think over to the 30s before they finally got rid of them, whatever. But they'd been there all that time. Taking care of the horse and showing the cadets how to properly mount and everything's how to do proper drill with the horses. And speaking of horses, back in the day, this went for the 24th as well at Fort Benning. They had a service company and they rode horses too. It was important for an officer to learn how to ride a horse. The reason why you knew how to ride a horse, basically you got invited to all the good reindeer games. That's where you will meet your future wife and you will move up the chain promotion wise. So it was important to know how to ride a horse. And at Fort Benning, the young officers who didn't know how to ride a horse, it was known that the white commanders he would find that the officers who did not know how to ride a horse, he'd march them right down to the service company of the 24th Regiment right there at Fort Benning. And he'd say, Corporal so-and-so or Sergeant Henderson, I want you to teach my wife or Lieutenant Buckley how to ride a horse. And he made it clear. He said, whatever they say to do, you ought to do. And he wanted to learn how to ride a horse. And he knew that would help their career to move up that chain.
Given the state at that time in the United States of sort of race relations, it was then very beneficial for a young man of color to join the army and be able to gain rank and gain position and gain wealth. Is that right?
Yes, because after the Civil War, the only thing they could do was during the Civil War was pick cotton, sugarcane, and thresh rice. When they were given their freedom, thank God, the only thing they knew how to do was pick cotton, sugar canes, and thresh that rice. And they were join the military. It was a chance, even still to this day, to see the world at the military's expense. They were getting paid a regular paycheck. And for any Black man, even still to this day, they retire from the military, they will retire at the equivalency at middle class status because of what they did and what the money they getting for retirement plus another civilian job. So they'd be sitting at middle class status. There's a chance, like I said, for them to not, to serve their country, but also they're getting skills. But again, those chaplains would teach them how to read and write, and them guys were getting good. A lot of them, like I said, they got a skill in the trade while in the Army. Even when I joined in 81, I got a skill in the trade. It helped me become a very successful man. And all the men that I knew of, they had the reasons why they joined. But the Buffalo Soldiers had the highest re-enlistment rate, the highest success rate of staying in the military. Even still to this day, Black men join the military at a higher rate, and it would stay in, particularly Blacks from the South. That's white Southerners as well, would stay in the military at a higher rate than anybody else. So they had this skill. They had the lowest desertion rate, the lowest alcoholism rate. They had the lowest rate of suicides. They had the lowest rate of what they call able to cope with situations. So they had the lowest of all of that.
Take us up to the Korean War. Was the 24th Infantry Regiment, was that the only Black unit in Korea?
During the Korean War, there was a total of 96 Black units that saw action in Korea, 96. The 24th was the only Black regiment of its size to go into Korea. It was the last of the original Buffalo Soldiers to go into Korea. They were the last Black regimental combat team to go into Korea. They had a lot of things they did. And they were deactivated there in Korea because the military said they integrated. But when they went out, when they were finally deactivated October the 1st, 1951 at Chipari, Korea, they walked away with an impressive record. They became the most decorated Black unit in U.S. history. They racked up some stuff. These young men, my dad's there, Mr. Curtis Morrow and Mr. James Thompson. I'm just standing on their shoulders. These guys did it for me. They paved the way for a lot of men.
If you're not hearing sound, that's because there is no sound for this video. But looking on YouTube, I was able to find when the 24th was disbanded here in Korea. But had some stock footage from that, I guess, from that day.
Yes, that's it.
Go ahead.
That was carried live by MGM Studios, and that was the first time in U.S. history that a unit was deactivated in a combat zone. The first time in U.S. history. They cased their colors.
Take us through the path of the 24th in Korea. Did they hit at Pusan and push north?
Well, they landed with a lot of other units. They came across when they were so desperate to get troops over there to Korea. They were going across. Some flew over. Some went across on boats. Some went across on Japanese fishing trawlers. And the guys said they were so sick from the smell of that fish smell and bobbing up and down in the water. Guys were throwing up, but they'd get them over as soon as they could. and they came across, they landed at Busan, get them up to the front lines to fight like everybody else. And like a lot of units, they've been in Japan all those years. The entire 8th Army was not prepared for war. That's a proven fact, cannot be disputed. And that can be laid at the feet of MacArthur, the chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You can name it, the Secretary of Defense. The list goes on and on. Who can lay that at their feet? How unprepared the American forces were when we went to Korea.
Curtis, I want to bring you into the conversation now. First, just to ask, were you there that day during the disbanding?
No, I joined the Korean War in December of 1950. In fact, it was December the 4th of 1950. I don't know whether Jim was there before me or not. But yeah, you went to
Japan.
Right. Okay. So he was among the first who landed in Korea.
This is Darrel's father.
Oh, all of them are my father. They're my adopted dads.
Oh, I get you. Okay. Before the program
dads.
tonight, you said your dad. I was like, your
Yeah,
father.
that's what I mean. All of them are my dads. All of them. They paved
I
the way for me.
gotcha
They're
now.
my dads.
Yeah, that's what he called it. That's our favorite son. Yeah. Yeah, I joined in 1950, December the 4th. That was shortly after MacArthur had made that landing to Incheon and pushed north.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had been promised that, the troops would be home by Christmas. But that didn't work out that way. We underestimated the enemy, put it like that.
Well,
but,
Curtis, not sorry to interrupt, Curtis. Let's take a step back to the point of your enlistment, because you enlisted quite young.
Yeah, I was 17 years old. I joined the Army to help support my mother. She was a single parent then, and my father had passed. I had there were 7 of us, and I'm the oldest, yeah. And so that was one promise, but at that age, young kids, we want adventure, we want to travel, we want to be heroes, and our own knowledge of war was what we saw in the movies. So we know now that no movies could actually give a description of a real war. Like it wouldn't be allowed in first. It just it's too gross. It's nothing like the ones that made in Hollywood. But yeah, I was quite young. Here I am here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but you can find we have a lot of information on Facebook. And if those who are on Facebook can just go to the 24th Infantry Regiment Association and put my name in, Curtis Morrow, Curtis J. Kojo Morrow, and it'll take you right there. Or they can just do a Google search, and that will take them directly to it. We got a lot of information there from different veterans and people who are seeking knowledge and so forth about the Black soldiers in Korea, because quite a few of our commanding officers was from World War II. Matter of fact, I guess Darrel could tell you more about it, but we had quite a few that was Tuskegee Airmen. Mm-hmm. The ones who had enlisted for, career soldiers. So they cut back, some of them joined the Army in order to continue their career. So they ended up as Washington, as commanding officers. I remember one quite well, was Lieutenant Boss. I think he was a lieutenant then. He was with the 761st, that's 761st Engineering. And we had quite a few pilots that, some of them even took a reduction in rank, and in order to, finish their enlistment and so forth. So they served. I had the pleasure, I guess you could say pleasure, of serving under them. And, they were soldiers. I think Nash just about, and the officers we had, now there wasn't too many, all our officers when I joined was white. Caucasian, right?
Mhm.
And
So
many
even
of them-
even in the all black regiment, you had
oh
white
yeah,
officers.
all
Yeah.
black, yeah. But the first officer I remember, the first officer of mine, actually my platoon leader, Lieutenant Hall from Oklahoma. This guy he was a leader. I mean, you know, he was someone in order to lead black troops, you got to gain our confidence. And to a man, I can say you would follow him to hell. Really. I mean, he was the type
how did he gain your confidence?
What we call him Let's Go. That was our nickname for, you know, we give everybody get nicknames. But his favorite word to, I guess, to most of us was, all right, buckle up, let's go. And he'd take off first. I mean, he would always take off first, even on patrols. You know, we have a platoon patrol. And so we say, oh, here come, let's go, whatever. And so, yeah, he got hit several times. The last time he was hit, I understand they put him in headquarters. And by then he had enough points to get rotated. Either that or the last wound he suffered was a stateside wound. Okay, so that he made it back. Then down is the first black lieutenant or platoon leader we had was Lieutenant Davis. He was there for about 3 months and he got hit. I met his daughter online. You know, I met quite a few of his children online and in person. Matter of fact, he was with us. He was in the group when they was doing this dedication to the Korean War memorial there. Nash, you remember that? I can't recall the exact year. Anyway, she was walking around in a 100-degree temperature, 110.
95.
105, yeah, okay.
95.
90.
Oh, I thought it was
1995.
Oh, 95
19
in 105-degree temperature.
No, I'm talking about the temperature.
Yeah,
You know.
1995 when they the Korean Memorial.
Right, okay.
Down in Washington.
Yeah, that's none. But anyway, she was looking for somebody some member, because she knew some of us was there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it was about 1 million people there, so she couldn't find it.
Curtis, were you the only person in your family to enlist?
Did it on purpose.
Yeah, I was the only one. Well, when I came on furlough from Korea in 1952, 51, my brother enlisted. That broke my heart because, you know, they didn't know. But so happened he joined the Air Force, so he was cool. He did 22 years. But we were the only ones that actually joined the service.
And what did your mom think whenever you joined?
Well, she didn't know, you know, 'cause when I joined the service, yeah, that was before the war. And the war didn't start until June, July. And by then I had finished basic training. It was in Fort Belvoir. The only thing that was open for me, for my group that came out of, it's Fort Riley, Kansas. That's where I took my basic training. And the only group that was our group, well, the only opening was for engineering and demolition and booby trap ground leader. So I joined for that. You know, I was volunteer for everything. Actually, I have to admit, I was gun-ho. We were all gun-ho. I mean, until we got there. Even when we got there, you know, you have to develop attitudes.
Totally.
And our attitude was my attitude. I think I know most of the guys in my squad and platoon was like, F it. If I'm going to die, I want to die like a soldier, a man.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other part is, I'll send as many ahead as possible. And so, you know, you stick with it because that becomes one of the most important things to you at that time is how you die. Because, you know, some of your comrades might get back to the States. And so they might run into a family member And if, you know, the family member going to be curious to know how did he die. And so they could tell him he died doing whatever.
Did you ever think growing up, you know, you're on the boat going over to, or did you fly or did you take the boat over to Korea?
Took boat. Yeah,
took the boat. Say you're on the boat going over to Korea. Did you ever think, you know, when you're growing up, like I'm going to be able to see the world, not necessarily in the best condition, but you know.
No, yeah, you know, we on the boat now going over, you know, we were gun ho. Everyone on that troop ship was, I mean, we were trying to get there, you know, because, you know, we was told that it was just a police action, right? So we figured like, hell, this will be over with. So matter of fact, when I signed a waiver to get out of the engineering school, you know, the whole class just about dropped out because we all wanted to see some action. You know, that's the way you feel. And so I think I had 8 days furlough. I went home for about 3 days and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I gotta go, you know, because she said, well, why you don't want to finish your week out? You know, I said, Mom, it might be over, but you know, I was really afraid that the police action would be over by the time I got there. So, you know, so I cut my leave short and went there. On the boat, on the ship, we were all gun, white, black, red, yellow, everybody. You know, we wanted to get there. If no further than Japan, we wanted to get there. You know, matter of fact, that's where we really wanted to go because we had never heard of Korea before. Nobody, you know, we didn't know nothing about Korea. But, and so anyway, we landed in Korea, was there for about 3 days. And from Korea, we took, I think it was the LST, but anyway, we took a ship around to, we landed in Incheon. So that meant we sailed around the peninsula, you know, up the coast to, and that was the first awakening that we got. I was
going to say, when was the first point where you were like, yeah, we're gung ho, we're ready to do this. And I'm going to bring up a map here real quick of the peninsula, but you went from pretty much this area down around and up into here.
Right. Yeah.
And at what point did you get over there and the gung ho-ness sort of sets in, or, you know, like reality?
Yeah. Well, that was the first awakening when we arrived in Incheon. And at that time, you know, Incheon there was nothing, man. It was nothing but the first smell I remember, and I never forget it, is gunpowder, petrol, you know, gasoline, fuel, and garlic. I don't know how that happened, but you know, a lot of people eat garlic there. And after we debarked from the troop ship, when we were lined up, I guess they say it was about 800,000, you know, replacements that were going to the front. And so they call out names, and I noticed the group that I was with, it was all black. Then I said, oh God, Whitey's up to something, you know. And so we were thinking, you know, we were just but you know, BSing amongst ourselves. And then the next thing we noticed some trucks, 2.5-ton trucks coming towards us. You know, they were coming from north, right? And on the back of one or two of those trucks, but one really caught my attention was what we thought, you know, as it was approaching us, was duffel bags, you know, because we started getting rid of stuff first, you know how the Army do. We got rid of gas masks because there was no gas, you know. We had took gas mask training. So we got rid of and that was a stack of that. And then a pile of, you know, gas masks where we just getting rid of them. And then the trucks, the vehicle, where the 2.5-ton trucks approached us. And I noticed what we thought was canvas duffel bags, duffel bag, that was covered with tarpaulin, you know, canvas. And the wind blew the corner up, you know, off of the, what it was covering, and we noticed there was bodies and body bags. And that's when we really started looking at each other. It's like, damn, those are troops. Those are American troops. And that's when, by that time, yeah, that was when we started, say, damn, this looking, this ain't the way, don't look like no police action, Yeah.
Yeah.
And so after that, when they unloaded the truck, they unloaded the bodies onto the ships, that had brought us in. And they served us some coffee and donuts. Oh, there was some Red Cross workers there. I don't know whether it was wax or I think they were Red Cross workers, a few women. So we said, well, hell, if the women's here, it must not be too bad, because, Whitey still got his woman's here, so, anyway, so the women, after they served the hot chocolate, coffee, and donuts, they accompanied, they also loaded aboard the ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we was called off, and by that time it was all black that was on the truck that I was on. And then we was wondering, but so we didn't mind it, it wasn't no big deal, but it's something you think about. And that's when we headed north. And when we joined the 24th, it was 8 miles south of Pyongyang, the capital. And the brother comrade by the name, my squad leader named Milton Bailey, he was later killed in action. But the honor, they had him listed as MIA for years, up until a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Well, he met us when the truck dropped us off, picked up wounded. Oh, on the way at our drop-off point, right, we began to meet troops, walking wounded and troops coming south. Of course, the road would be littered with refugees, Korean heading south. And so every now and then, we have to run them off the road in order for the vehicles to get up the road, Mm-hmm. And I think Jim can talk more on that.
Well, Jim, so anyway, we'll pause real quick. Jim, you're sort of surprised joining us tonight, which is great. Thank you so much for being here. You were there before Curtis was?
Yeah.
Yes, I was stationed in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then were you part of the first initial wave into Korea?
Yes, I was. We landed in Busan the 13th day of July, 1950.
Can you tell me about that experience? So was that your first experience with combat?
Yes, it was. Matter of fact, it was all our first experience in combat. We was alerted latter part of June, 1950. And we started loading up around the 1st of July, get new equipment and cleaning equipment, mm-hmm. getting ready to leave. We left Sasebo. I remember we left Sasebo the 9th of July, going towards Busan. We arrived in Busan. I think it was the 13th of July. We landed in Busan. We got off the ships. We loaded on trains. We rode trains for about 6 hours, I think, going north. We got off the trains, we loaded on the trucks, and we moved north. We first engaged the enemy in the town of Yushan, Japan, Korea. And that was the first battle we had, and that's the first victory we had in Korea.
As a regiment, or as a unit, or as a regiment?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
24th had the first victory in Korea, Yushan, 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, after that, battalion, division, we were with the 25th Division. Okay. One thing I like to clear up that Nash told about, we don't like to get the 24th Infantry Regiment mixed up with the 24th Division. Mm-hmm. Because they came out yelling at some dumb white lieutenant said the 24th dropped their weapons and they ran, they didn't fight. We didn't go in until July. The 24th Division went in June. See, so they have the people mixed up.
Mhm.
So anybody that got captured and lost their weapons and ran was the 24th Division, wasn't the 24th Regiment.
And that's a big controversy within the history of the 24th Regiment within the Korean War was, this sort of followed the regiment for quite some time, years, in fact.
It really did. It hurt us. It hurt us. But we knew that it wasn't us. They knew it wasn't us, but they didn't want to put it on the 24th Division. All white outfit. So everybody took for granted, yeah, well, it was the colored boys that ran. Oh no, we ain't run nowhere. If we was running the wrong way. Because we was running north.
Right. And the 24th Division, I think, didn't they lose their general?
Yep.
He was captured. Yeah, that's
captured. They give him a Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Darrel, can you speak a bit to that history?
Yes. And what Mr. James Thompson had said when in the first battle at Yushan, that was very important because that was the first time ever that the United Nations, because they were getting their butts kicked, they said June the 25th. We were getting our butts kicked by the North Koreans. They had no respect for us. And you could basically, like I said, we were unprepared. We had a lot of what they called hubris. They were, when they see the Americans, they're just going to run. We're the big bad United States. We had whooped, people in World War II, which we had. But the North Koreans had been training for 5 years straight. And they were some educated boys, especially the ones we fought against, the 6th North Korean People Army. There was 4 elite divisions. You had the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. They were considered elite divisions. And we fought against that hard-headed 6th. And they were tough. They're called the Seoul division because they had taken Seoul. And they had told the Kim Il-sung, the great-granddad, the granddad, that their next victory was going to take was Pusan. And of course, the 24th made sure that never happened. But in regards with that ground victory, July the 20th, 1950, that's when it occurred. That was for the United Nations as a whole, because we had British troops going there, Ethiopian soldiers were there, French, and we just, we were getting our tails kicked all over the place. And Mr. Thompson with L Company, there was 3rd Battalion, along with its engineers, the 77 engineers, and some of the 159 field artillery. We gave us the first sizable ground victory. And that's all. It was such an important thing that they talked about it in the halls of Congress. They praised the 24th for doing that because we needed a victory. Nobody could do it but us, and those brave men were able to pull that off.
And then this first victory, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know Jim could speak more on this, the 77, what is that, engineer, right? With Colonel Bosey wrote, in fact, that was the first victory that the United Nations, that was our first victory in Korea. If I'm not, I think I got, 77. And, but Jim can talk much more on that. I mean, he's not telling a lot of stuff. That's one of our problems, because we never, I don't know if I should say problem, but we never wrote about our history. Like most veterans, comeback veterans, they don't write about that stuff. I mean, you don't tell how can I tell my little baby when they ask me, Daddy, Granddaddy, were you in the war? And I say, yeah, what did you do? What is it like? I wouldn't tell them some of this stuff that we dealt with. I mean, we was fighting on 2 fronts. At least we had weapons to defend ourselves in Korea and the World War II and so forth. So we never wrote about our history. I think the first one that I know of was Colonel Bosey and what's the other one? Carlisle. Lieutenant Carlisle, they wrote this firefighter at Yejon, and then there was Lar, the Caucasian, the white guy from
Colonel from A Company.
Yeah, and Lar.
Yeah.
there was also, if I may, this, I'm going to bring it up south to the Naktong, north to the
Yes.
Yalu. This it's sort of looking up on the Army website. This was brought out in it was 61, I believe. This was written by Roy E. Appleman. The problem with this, and you can read the whole book here online, I believe. The problem with this take is that it kind of leans way too heavy into the racism piece. It does not true history. So a lot of the veterans came out and went to Congress, said, you need to rewrite this. This does not give us our due. And they've done that. They've gone back. You can I can put these sources here into the chat to read more about the true history, because as Curtis was saying, their history wasn't being told by the soldiers, unfortunately, and that led to a lot of misinformation. And that's a question I have: is you guys, you had to fight almost like you were fighting on four fronts. You had to fight for trust of your superior officers. You had to gain the trust of everybody around you. You had to fight the Koreans, and you had to fight the war at home in the sense of just like what the history books need to show for what the 24th went through. And I thought I'd open that up to you all to sort of speak to that. How did you keep that energy alive of just like, we want the real story out there?
All right, one thing you got to remember, okay? You're in combat. You ain't worrying about nothing else but the individual next to you in your squad. This is what you're worrying about. You're not worrying about the white soldier. You don't see it. You don't ask about it. We're worrying about one another.
Right.
Okay? Now, when they keep saying that the 24th ran and all of that stuff, which was bull. The dues for, listen, let's be honest. We didn't run, but we felt like running. But then again, you got to think, where in the hell you going to run to? Where you going to run to?
You're on Busan, you're running straight back into the sea.
Right. Okay. So we stayed, we fought. Okay. You in this tape, they a documentary they did on us about 10 years ago. Last of the Buffalo Soldier. It's a tape, okay, and it's a very, very good one. They were saying the narrator was saying, "Oh, this battle, they left all their equipment. They left all their equipment." Now, when you in combat and you're fighting at night and the enemy's there, you take that stuff off. You take off your pack. The only thing you have is your M1 and your ammunition. You take your pack off. So if you get pushed back, you don't go look for your pack to take with you. You pick it up later. So this is what he's saying, but he's not telling the whole story.
Yeah.
This is the night that William Thompson got killed on the machine gun. Medal of Honor winner. He didn't run. He was the first Medal of Honor winner in the 25th Division.
It's like the only two books. Okay, now here's a book here. I know you guys. 1 year with
Shaw.
With your Shaw, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
He's a lieutenant. He was a
company
lieutenant.
commander, A company.
What was he? I think he was a platoon leader.
He was company commander.
Company commander, right? I mean, now this guy, he served with. We met him a couple of times because he came to. He would attend our meeting and so forth.
Yeah, he would attend all the conventions.
Yeah. Actually, on that running part is actually, the first thing during my debriefing or briefing, we're fighting for our lives. And the best chance of surviving, it's just not us it's all soldiers. I mean, you know, you drop all that. I'm fighting for my country. I'm fighting for all this. I mean, look, man, on the front, when you're in that foxhole, you're fighting for your life. And this applies to every soldier. And your best chance of surviving that is firepower and teamwork. And your officers is right there with you because his life depends on, we all depend on each other. And where can you run? Like Jim said, you know, I think he was a sergeant. So it meant he was probably a platoon sergeant there. So it's like, but I think they really, on our website there on Facebook, I know I don't want to hog the program, but on our website, and also they can just Google search Curtis Kojo Morrow and Collar, all these guys that wrote, it wasn't but about 4 or 5 that wrote books, memoirs. It has to be a memoir because when we read a memoir of, you know, any kind of war, that's as close as you're going to get to the reality of what soldiers deal with, you know, on the front line.
Curtis, what do you think of Lyle's book there? Did you feel like it captured it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, you have to, he passed a few years ago. Oh yeah, he was a soldier. I mean, people following him. You know, I mean, soldiers followed him.
Darrel, I want to ask you, how difficult was it to piece together, out of all the misinformation, to piece together the true stories here of the 24th?
Well, the main thing was this, just by talking to those veterans, they were there, they saw it. And also to get into the National Archives, and that's what I did. And the old saying, seek and ye shall find. And just like Mr. Jim Thompson said, that they were running, how in the world they went all them doggone decorations on an average, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Curtis Morrow, they were winning, those guys in the 24 were winning somewhere like 2 or 3 medals on an average, awards or medals. That means the CIB with a Purple Heart, or the CIB, or the Bronze Star, or 2 Bronze Stars, all this stuff they were winning, 2 awards of valor or medals on an average per man in that regiment. And back to the part of that guy named Roy Appleman, he badmouthed the entire 8th Army, but seemed like he had special stuff at the 24th. And again, the man, Roy Appleman, never saw combat in World War II or Korea. So, and we had a chance, not me, but some guys got a chance to meet him at South Carolina to confront him on that book. And of course, he said, I'll talk to you guys once I finish playing golf with the general, the retired general of the 1st Cav. Well, he finished playing golf and the guys went looking for him. They go knock on his door. And of course, his wife answered, oh, he's kind of sick. He can't talk right now. And later on that night, he booked out of Dodge. He left the hotel, him and his wife. That happened. So, and they want to confront him on that. And then what Roy Appleman said in his so-called dissertation, that the 24th was given the best officers to be in it. That was a lie within itself. They were not. He was repeating stuff that he had heard from the old days when the 24th and Black units first started out in the old Indian days. They were given best officers. They came from West Point. But those, like I said before, those officers, if they graduated at the bottom of their class, you were assigned to colored troops. That's just the way it was. So Appleman's stuff was not right. In regards with the movie that Mr. Thompson had talked about, the narrator in that book, he wrote that book, Black Soldier, White Army. No offense, he was to be a priest, he didn't make it. So he had wrote that book. And you listen to the narrative, you look at his facial expression and body language, he was showing distaste and disdain toward the 24th. And we had issues with that. And they show more of him. They're supposed to do a version of that, but they never did. But he said they left a lot of stuff down on the field. Well, they did leave some stuff on the battlefield that cannot be disputed. They left enough stuff that was equivalent to a company-sized unit. But of course, what you do, you exaggerate the truth. They left behind everything, which was a lie. The 24th Division, I mean, just basically, they left behind a lot of stuff that cannot be disputed. The 24th Division did. All that stuff is documented. I think they lost on an average of 225 men a day for 17 in a row. That's the highest in U.S. history. Lost a lot of stuff, heavy equipment. They lost a general, 3 of their regimental commanders, 5 of their battalion commanders. All were lost in 17 days. So you want to talk about running and losing stuff? They did. Now, according to the write-ups, there was a strategic victory because they slowed down two North Korean divisions. But they don't talk too much about their history. They always want to blame the 24th. And that's when I got into them archives, found all that stuff they had done. And they were some bad mother shut your mouths. And they being nice, they talking, but they were some bad dudes. They were tough. They really were.
And I tell you, and another thing is with the 24th Division, actually they were outnumbered in the beginning because they were the first. They were out soldiers, like the North Koreans were soldiers. You know, we have to. I remember one of the first lessons my platoon sergeant gave us when I was attending basic training is never underestimate your enemy. You know, and they was underestimated. Like the North Koreans are fighters, they're warriors. Everyone there was warriors. You never hear a soldier in any military operation, especially American, refer to each other as warriors, right? Most of that name came to us through the news media, you know, and the propaganda. You know, every army has propaganda, every country, in order to instill the fear, you know, war spirit in their soldiers. Like when we landed in Camp Drake on our way to Korea, I remember this banner. It says, "Through these gates walk the most bravest and the baddest military organizations in the world." Now, hey, that made us feel good, you know, it made us feel good all the way up until the front. Then when we came face to face with the enemy, they also had the same, you know, propaganda too, because you got to instill the ability to fight. You got to hike yourself up just like a football game or a baseball game. You know, you up. And by the time you get to that field, man, you ready to run through somebody, you know? So that same feeling, but then you meet your opposition and they have the same feeling. The opposition in our case there was more of them. And so for the other qualifications for being a fighter or what, they was fighters. And you have to really witness them. I know, Jim, we saw this. We see hundreds of dudes, Chinese, especially during the winter, you can see them because they're coming up the mountains. Korea is a very mountainous country. And you see them coming, man, they crawling, and we throwing everything at them because we got air power, artillery, and some of those people they didn't even have a weapon. They'll have about 5 or 6 rounds of ammunition in their pockets, right? And once one of their comrades is hit, then they take the rifle. I witnessed with my own eyes the front road fall across barbed wire and the back road run across that back. Jim saw that more because they was the first group in up the north. I mean, you just don't see soldiers doing that, you know. As for, you know, sure, we got our pet, you know, organization, and we gave a lot of credit to the Marines. That's not to say that they don't deserve them. We had a nickname for them too, but you know, because they suffered. I mean, they lost a lot of men and they fought for their life. They fought to win, and they were good fighters. They get good training, but they had to leave all their equipment too. You know, when they left, when the Chinese came in at Hanoi, you know that Nash. Well, it was a complete fool when the Chinese entered the war. The Marines were the first one because they was isolated on the East Coast, right? Yeah, the East Coast. So a lot of people got left behind. Yeah, it was on the East Coast, you know, and because we were like mostly on the West Coast of, you know, Korea. So, but we call it, in some cases, we call it a strategic withdrawal.
Yeah, well.
But, you know, it's a withdrawal.
If you remember one thing now, when we hit the Yalu River in November, okay, Thanksgiving, we had the North Koreans beat. We had them beat until the Chinese come in. okay? Because I know, because our battalion, 3rd Battalion, we spearheaded the division, okay? Now, if we was cowards and all that, why didn't the division commander relieve us? I wouldn't have fought, I wouldn't have said a word. I went to the rear. He kept us out front. So when we hit the Yalu River in 1950, because right after that, we had retook Seoul and kept going. And we was bogged down talking about we're ready to go home. And the next thing you know, the Chinese come in, okay, and we started withdrawing. You know, and they talking about people running. I didn't see nobody run. We withdrew. We withdrew.
How
we
much
withdrew a little fast.
Jim, how did the intensity increase when China entered the war?
Say that again. Will you repeat that?
How did the intensity of the conflict increase when China entered the war, causing the withdrawal?
Well, I could say, but I think Jim could, if he remember that, you know, because he was right there up near the Yalu River, you know, where they came across. When I joined in December was when I met the retreating forces.
Yeah, we was coming
back. Replacements. I was amongst the replacements to take the place, you know, and he was there when they came across the border. I mean, you know, they surprised everybody. Our intelligence dropped the ball on that one. I mean, you got 250,000.
No, that's not true. More. That's not true. Our intelligence didn't drop it because S&S platoon picked up some Chinese, okay, trying to cross over the Yalu River. And they picked them up and they sent that information back. And the information was they was freedom fighters or something. That is, the Chinese are not coming in. So we did get that information.
But you mean the information concerning the number, the
Chinese, not the number, the Chinese.
Okay. Yeah, but later on, you know, that's when we didn't get the number figure until later anyway, probably.
Yeah. Also too, Sean, I want to jump in there.
Yeah.
In regards with that, in this situation, what Mr. Jim Thompson said, they were right. They did get they captured, I think, some of the first communist Chinese, let them know, say, hey, this is what's going on. When they came into the war, they didn't mess around. They came in as a horde. Every division was taking on 50,000 Chinese at a time. They came in as hordes. This was the first time we fought a 72-mile retreat. The entire 8th Army, the worst in our history. We left behind more artillery pieces than we ever lost in World War II combined. It was just that bad. I mean, a 72-mile retreat. And the Marines at Chozan, and like the commander had made a comment. He said, we're not retreating, we're just fighting in a different direction. Right, and I got to give it to them. They brought out their dead and they wounded. They was frozen. Marines did do that. But the other guys, they were trying to get out of there. And the communist Chinese, like Mr. Morrow said, these guys did not carry a lot of stuff. They would run across and they were following communist doctrine. And the doctrine is like, you got to get to a certain point. Once you get that, because the Chinese did not want to take prisoners until they got to their till they got to their objectives. And the point was, as long as you got away from where they got to their objective, you were okay. But it was a 72-mile retreat, the worst in U.S. history. Again, that too was documented. It was the worst in our history.
I read something about this term "bug out boogie." What? Yeah. Can you just define that for me? I heard you can't understand it unless you were there.
I could find it. I could give you one definition of it. It's what I was the 24th Division. Now I'm not putting them. We're not putting them on the bad side, you know, because like I said,
yes, we are. Yes, we are. We took the blame for it.
Yeah, we took the blame for it. Okay, because we didn't have anyone. We didn't speak up on. There was no one writing on our behalf. You know, I think what we usually do as a race, we wait for other people to write our history or to tell our history, you know, because that's the whole country. You know, most of our history, American history, is not nice because we are the most powerful country in the world, the richest in the country, but didn't nobody give it to us. And we blacks, red, all different nationality, we helped fight for it. We are called Buffalo Soldiers. So it meant we helped suppress the indigenous American, because that's, I believe, and a lot of people believe, that's the nature of human being, is to take from someone else. Like we see the same thing going on now in the Middle East. They're not fighting for fun, man. We fighting for something, okay? Not for, it's about everything that we enjoy now. But the point is, on that issue that we're talking, like there was only one, as far as I know now, Nash maybe no others, division that never lost their artillery. You know, we talking about 105 pieces, and you got to have trucks to move it around, right? And we got to consider the terrain. It's like 15 and 25 below 0 now. Check that out, right? You got to, you know, so you got all those obstacles in front of you. You got to deal with, okay? But yet it's still the 159 is the only regiment artillery battalion that never lost a piece of equipment in combat.
I want to piggyback on it, what he just said. The 159 Field Artillery and the 77 Combat Engineers was attached to the 24th. That's why they were called a regimental combat team. They were attached to them, and those were black units. And he's right what Mr. Curtis Morrow just said. The 159, when we were pulling out of those areas, you know, getting out of there, fleeing from the communist Chinese, they brought back all of their artillery pieces with them. And I mean, we lost a lot of artillery pieces in that retreat, that 72-mile retreat, the worst in U.S. history. The number of trucks, equipment, the number of men got captured. It was just a bad situation. So, and like what Mr. Thompson has said, this thing you talking about bug out boogie, they try to put that crap on the 24th Infantry Regiment as horse manure. No, that was something that the 24th Division got because they got their butts lit up the first part of the war. And then when you talk about that 72-mile retreat, you can't lay that at the 24th feet. The entire 8th Army was in full. That's a 72-mile retreat for them. So you look at all them guys, MacArthur, all them guys and stuff. So it was something that we had to get ourselves back together on, because that was just not good.
It's horrible. Plus the fact, I mean, picture this too. You know, we already can know that Korea is a very mountainous country in a way, right? Especially in the north. They even have more mountains in the north, right? So imagine trying to carry a wounded comrade, a wounded buddy off of a hill. It takes 4 men to carry a body, carry 1 man, especially if you're trying to carry him on a stretcher, which is impossible because you're going down a mountain. People are shooting at you, man, at the same time, right? Snipers. So, and that's an easy target. When you see 3 or 4 men grouped together, oh man, that's a perfect target. You shoot, you can close your eyes and shoot. You're going to hit 1 at least, you know, which will break up the whole thing. So it's difficult to bring one of your own buddies, your brother, off of a mountain. Back, you got to go down that mountain, then you got to cross a rice paddy, which is froze over. At the same time, you know, you got artillery and so forth, you know, all that stuff is falling amongst you. So that's what you got to deal with too. So it's, you know, you just have to leave them. And you hate it, you know, I still hate it.
And
Curtis,
plus the cold and the frost bites.
Yeah.
Because the 24th didn't get no winter gear. We didn't get
Brad brought up a really good question. If I may interrupt, Brad brought up a really good question here. How were the soldiers, you gentlemen included, treated when you returned home back into these states?
Look, I you know, I know the other brothers got others, you know, we all have a take on that. When I arrived in Fort Camp Stoneman, Korea, California. It was a troop ship. First of all, there wasn't a dry face on the ship because I don't know how many thousand of us on there. I mean, you know, guys, not just black, you know, I'm talking about comeback soldiers, all races, that was, returning to the States in 1951. Yeah, 51, last of 51. And the first thing we saw, well, you could hear the sound. There was, the people on the dot was singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, right? And as the ship, the General Walker troop ship, as it pulls into the harbor, then you can hear the singing. Then as we get closer, we saw the banners, welcome home, And so it was good. It made us feel damn good, Now, that night, that evening, some of the guys, myself included, decided to take off, and go to town because we had a little wait before we could get sent back, to our home. Okay, so we go to town. We goes into this little nightclub, and it was three of them, myself, and there was two guys, white guys beside me. I didn't know that, we were just going to have a beer. All we wanted was a beer. And the place was packed, okay. And the bartender comes over, he said, I can serve you, but I can't serve you. So he was pointing at me. And the place went silent. You could hear a nickel, a dime, a pin drop. Yeah, a pin drop. And then all of a sudden, everybody went, wow. I think everyone was under the impression that he meant that he couldn't serve me because I was Black. Now, the other reason could have been because I was too young, and I was. I was only 19 years old, 18, 19, one, So, but anyway, that was my first bet. The other guys, as we were loading up, for, trains and, planes or whatever way to go, the commanding officer of the group that was processing us went to some of the Southern guys, the guys that was going south, and said, well, soldier, this is not an order. It's just a suggestion. You might take your uniform, it might be a good idea to take your uniform off before you go home. We all got the message. Because usually what happens is when you land wherever you're going, if you're going someplace south at that time, it was the south, at a train station, they got the black and the white sign for the toilet, for everything. Mm-hmm. The first person you meet, usually the most uneducated one, the drunker of the city, of the town, is going to call you the N-word. They usually, at first, we would be approaching, oh, I had a great-grandbrother, great-grandfather, somebody who was in the service too. And the other thing would be like, how'd you get this? Where you get that from, boy? You got to be a boy, although you could be a grandfather, well, fathers, right? And you got to stand there, you got to take that shit, man. Other than that, you can go to jail, and usually if you get picked up, if the police come, they're going to take you, and you may not never get home. All you want to do is go home, man. And they to see your family. But you got to go through that before you can go home.
James,
well, that's just one. Yeah.
How was your reception, James?
Well, I'm from Brooklyn originally. And when I come into Camp Kilman, I went and caught my bus going home. I don't know who this guy is I'm looking at.
That's all right. It should be a speakered on you. Go ahead. You're spotlighted.
Yeah, well, I'm from Brooklyn, so I come in. We came in. So when I come back in 51, because I got wounded in April 51 when we broke out to cross the Han, one of them rivers.
Yeah, the Han.
Yeah, I got hit. But I stayed in Walter Reed about 8 months. So when I come up, I didn't pay no attention to it. I didn't run into no problem until I got assigned down to Fort Carson, Colorado, I went to the Dixie Division. And they was mostly National Guards out of Mississippi, Alabama, or Arkansas. And I walked in the oiler room, and this corporal told me he was the first sergeant. I'm looking at my stripes, and I said, first sergeant of who? He said, well, as soon as my cousin get here, we'll take your stripes. I said, son, you're not going to take my stripes. I said, I'll kill you. 3 days later, I was at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. So that's the way it goes sometimes. You run across them, you know. But, in Jersey, we didn't have much of a problem, you know. But not going to say it's not there. It's there.
Yeah.
It's in Jersey too, like everywhere else. But
I know we only have a couple minutes left here, so I do want Curtis and Darrel to talk a bit about their books. Darrel, would you like to go first?
Oh yeah, I wrote a book called The Decorated Texans of the 24th Infantry Regiment, and it mainly deals with the 24th while they were there in Korea. And the reason why I said the Decorated Texans of the 24th, there were three states that sent the most guys to Korea. I mean, to the 24th Infantry Regiment. Texas sent the most, and the other two was New York and California. And I think the third between North and South Carolina, but those three states sent the most guys to that regiment. And the Texans, like I said, the average guy won somewhere between two awards while they were with the 24th in Korea. You know, a highly decorated organization. I got some more books I'm in the process of writing, but I started with them. That was a hobby, and it turned into a book.
And where can you get the book?
Right now it's print on demand. I have to go have some more printed. But that's Decorated Texans. I forgot. I think the state of Texas have a copy of it on a display. The state of Texas.
Thank you. And Curtis, your book.
Yeah, well, I have several books on here. I only wrote one book, and it's what the hell did I just say? It's called. I just posted the website on the chat. I think I did. I'm trying to send it to. Oh wait, I'm trying to send it to everyone. That was just to.
Here you go.
To one person. Yeah, right. And also I have an ebook version of it too. The reason why I was able to do an ebook version is because the book was published before electronic books come. You know, social media and all that. So. And I wrote the book, the title was Black Warriors in Korea, but the publisher suggested this title. And, you know, I liked it. It's, you know, because it's just not my story. It's the story of the 1st Platoon, 1st Squad, you know, George Company. I couldn't even, you know, it's just, but we all have a similar story, you know, about, you know, while fighting. And so it's listed as, you could also find it as in the ebook too. Okay, I think I got this right here.
I put the link in the chat.
Oh yeah,
here.
okay, right.
Yeah,
But that's a ebook. And then there are several others. There's about 4 other books. Darrel's, and then there's Colonel Rochelle and Colonel Bossy, and who else?
Should be Holloway.
Yeah, Holloway, he was a colonel. Yeah. And yeah, so that's about not too many people's right, because not many veterans write books about their experience in the war anyway. I just found all that out later because, you know, it's just things that you would like to, but I think we should, because the younger generation should at least know. You know, I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I think the military is great for disciplinary and for educational purpose. It's good, you know, but for war, once you're in there, you follow orders regardless. You know, even if you don't like them. I never met a comeback soldier while I was in Korea that said that they would willingly come back. You know, it's just like going to hell twice. And nobody, if you go there once, you don't want to go back. You want,
Hey, Darrel,
Yes, yes, sir.
did you tell the gentleman how many generals come out the 24th?
No, I didn't. The total of, if they were add up so badly, since they're talking about we ran all over Korea, we from the 24th Infantry Regiment, they produced a total of 9 generals. 5 were white, 4 were black.
Oh, yeah.
5 were white, 4 were black. If you add up, if you so torn up and so undisciplined, how in the world would you produce so many generals from your ranks? And as you know through history, as far back as World War I or World War II, you screwed up in combat, your career was pretty much done for. And they produced a total of 6 major generals and 3 brigadier generals.
That's correct. Lieutenant Dillard, my platoon leader in Korea, was one of those generals.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we're at time tonight. I want to thank all 3 of you, Curtis, Morrow, Darrel, Nash, James Thompson, all for joining us to talk about this. There's a lot that we never even really got to, and including Darrel, your 26 years of service in the Army through Desert Storm, Shield, and into the War on Terror. Love to have you back to talk more about that as well. Curtis and James, there's so much more to both of your stories that we would love to dive more into. I really appreciate your time. Also joining us in honor of Black History Month. We really appreciate you being here, spending the time with us, and telling us your stories.
Thank you. Honors all mine.
Well, definitely, the honors are ours. Really appreciate it. And we're going to be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Gentlemen, you're welcome to join us anytime. And again, I do hope that we can have you back on to tell more of your amazing stories. And I hope that you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Too, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.